I don't want to be unnecessarily harsh toward the apostles, the 12 disciples, but man, this was a group of slow learners. They would hear Jesus. I mean, they're right there. It's not like Jesus was mumbling or stuttering. I mean, he came right out and said what he meant what he said, and they didn't get it. Like, for instance, we're in Matthew, I'm sorry, chapter 20, verse 17. Now, as Jesus was going up to Jerusalem, a little interesting fact, and you probably already know this. No matter where you are coming from, if you're going to Jerusalem, you're going up for a couple of reasons. Because Jerusalem was built on a hill, and because there was no spiritually higher place. None. Okay. Now, as Jesus was going up to Jerusalem, he took the 12 disciples aside and said to them, now, wherever Jesus went, a crowd gathered, hundreds to thousands. I mean, he hardly had any private moments. And the disciples were always with him. Okay. Well, I don't have any question that when Jesus was going up to Jerusalem here, there had to be a crowd following him. Well, Jesus pulled away from the crowd, took his disciples aside, and he said in verse 18, we're going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man, that was, that was his term for himself, used over and over again. The Son of Man will be betrayed to the chief priests and the teachers of the law. They will condemn him to death and will turn him over to the Gentiles, the Romans, to be mocked and flogged and crucified. On the third day, he will be raised to life. And we read that and go, yeah, that's what happened. Well, for a minute, put yourself in the disciples' sandals. For about 3 years, they had watched Jesus perform healing after healing after healing, miracle after miracle, confrontation with the Pharisees, and he stumped them. He walked right through the crowd, a couple of times at least that we know of, who wanted to kill him, throw him off the cliff. Walked right through. So what they had seen in Jesus was a man who had no equal rival. A man who had so far won every confrontation. So when Jesus said, we're going up to Jerusalem and I'm going to be betrayed, I'm going to be handed over to the Romans, they'll mock me, they'll flog me, they'll crucify me, and they understood that if you're to be crucified, nobody survived crucifixion, literally. I mean, it was impossible. But on the third day, I'll be raised to life, okay? I mean, if I'm a disciple, I'm hearing this going, that didn't make any sense. Matthew doesn't record what the disciples felt or what their response to this was. I don't think it would have been a response. It would have been a reaction. I guess I can't be too harsh toward them if I put myself in their sandals and realize it just wouldn't have made sense to me either. And then In verse 20, Matthew goes without transition, no more information about what were the reaction of the disciples. No. Verse 20. Then the mother of Zebedee's sons came to Jesus with her sons, and kneeling down, asked a favor of him. I don't know whether James and John's mother had overheard what Jesus had told his disciples. I don't even know if there's a possibility there was a lapse of time between his telling them literally step by step what was going to happen to him in Jerusalem. I don't know. But listen to what the favor she wanted to ask. Verse 21, what is it you want? Jesus asked. She said, grant that one of these two sons of mine may sit at your right and the other at your left in your kingdom. Dude, what's that about? The two seats of highest honor in a king's court or presence were the seats on his right and the seats on his left. That's what James and John wanted, or their mother wanted that for them. Now, this is going to be awful, so I'll just tell you right up front. But in my mind, I have a Jewish mother. I hear her with that Yiddish accent saying, my boys, take my boys. Well, in verse 22, Jesus said, you don't know what you're asking. Can you drink the cup I'm going to drink? Did they know what the cup was? They should have, because he just laid it out, line for line, item for item. We can, they answered. I think there was more enthusiasm there than there was realization, reality. Well, Jesus said to them, you will indeed drink from my cup. And what I get from that is, you will suffer, boys. But to sit at my right or my left is not for me to grant. These places belong to those for whom they have been prepared by my Father. I remember what at the end of the story of the landowner and the guys that he hired throughout the whole span of the day, and the last thing he said, so the last will be first and the first will be last. It's like Teflon. It just rolled off. Who will sit at the right and the left hand? I have no idea. This is me, but I'm pretty sure it will be surprising to us. When we see the person on his right and the person on his left, we'll go, I never would have thought of that. That's just me. Well, Jesus said, I don't get to pick that. My Father does. And then in verse 24, when the 10 others, right, heard about this, they were indignant with the two brothers. Well, yeah. What a brash, what an arrogant thing to do. Jesus called them together and said, you know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Which, what he's saying is, you know the system here. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. This whole idea of the first will be last and the last will be first, it just keeps being reinforced and reiterated over and over by Jesus. And as if the times that he had said it and the ways he had said it before were not enough, because evidently they weren't for the disciples. Jesus said, this is my rough, horrible paraphrase, but my kingdom is not like that. The system that's in place here is not the system that I will use. Instead, whoever wants to be great among you must be your servant. I do not have the gift of service, the spiritual gift of service. I have friends who do. And oh my goodness. If you ever have a project that you're in charge of, be sure you have someone with the gift of service on your team. They need chairs moved, they move chairs. You need Kool-Aid made, they make Kool-Aid. You need a salad tray brought, they bring a salad tray. They're not looking for applause. They're not, you don't have to parade them out in front and say, look at this guy, this girl, they did. No. It fulfills them to serve. I'm not sure anybody in the apostles fit that category. It's very difficult for those of us who do not have the gift of service to bend our will to become servants. But Jesus was our example. The one who, if anybody deserved to be served, it was Jesus. But he said, no, I'm your example. And he said, I'll take it to the extreme. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. Later on, we'll encounter it in a few chapters here. Jesus will demonstrate this again when he, at the Last Supper, filled a water basin, took off his outer garment, took a towel, and went one by one by one to the disciples and washed and dried their feet. Jesus' life was a life of service. He's the supreme example. Maybe you don't have a problem with this. I do. I need the constant reminder that my role here is not to be served. I don't want to be a spiritual Jabba the Hutt. Just big old fat, sitting there, and everybody else has to bring me stuff and do stuff for me. No. I'm going to be like Jesus, the creator of everything there is. John said nothing that has been created was not created by him. Everything was created by him. And he stooped to serve. It was his mission. Should it be ours, too, somehow? Probably. I'll see you next time on So Care with Stevie Boy.